And greetings, everybody. Keith here. Hoping everybody's having a good day, enjoying life, living life, loving life. Want to remind everybody, hit the like, share, and subscribe button. There's a PayPal button down there for anybody who wants to share some love. Every little bit is appreciated. Make sure you use friends and family, of course. And tonight I want to talk about peace through diplomacy. You guys hear me talking about that high school diploma and what good it did you. When you turn around and give up that diplomacy that you supposedly were educated in and become that subservient agent of the state, the secret agent man. They took away your name and gave you a number. There are many people that don't like war. We already know that. Most people don't like war. And this is my premise that I think mankind on a whole generally is more of a peaceful thing, peaceful creature than wanting to be at war, chaos, disorder. I think man logically, as logic is, it's an order in things. And I think a good, reasonable, logical man follows that order. Today, I think we still have a lot of reasonable, logical men. But as you see through all of the insanity clips that we review, the world is showing its face of the warring faction more so than the peaceful side. So there's a guy that most of you might know is Jack Talcott, and he wants to end all wars and bring the world to peace and end all the secrets and stuff. And that's all well and everything, and that's a lofty goal. But it's a goal that can be achieved, I believe, as well. And it shows on the smaller scales. And just like they say, wars are won one at a time. Peace is slowly attained bit by bit. And so tonight I want to go over some of the recent history that we should be familiar with. But we're not. I see a lot of the world distracted on the conspiracies and everything. And this is why I don't get into them too much. And again, if you think I'm talking conspiracy or anything, I remind you that I consistently and constantly tell you, do not believe me. Do not believe the neighbor. Do not believe the government. For crying out loud, don't believe your mother. Do your research so you know. And that's the foundation of what I'm trying to do here is allow people to open their minds to the aspect that we do have things that come to peace without war. And we have many instances of this. First, I'm going to start out. Let's see here. Let me get my screen share. Something in our most recent history, or relative recent history, of course, is Ronald Reagan. Oops. What are we doing here? I don't know how many of you remember Ronald Reagan, but he's the one I talk about when we speak on the year of the Bible and the fact that Public Law 97-280 tells us how he outlined the principles of the biblical scriptures as the foundation for the supreme law of the land, and that which emanates through the Constitution of the United States, Declaration of Independence, Confederate documents. The foundational documents, like I said, are the things that show us that the government is already set up through a logic and order, a guide through the biblical principles. And again, I'm not telling you to believe the biblical principles either, but certainly do your research so you can at least comprehend them and maybe discern for yourself what kind of order they play in your life as to morals, ethics, logic, reason, emotions, real life experiences, things like that. But this is Ronald Reagan in 1989.
General Secretary
Excuse me,
Gorbachev,
1987. My apologies.
if you seek peace, if you seek prosperity for the Soviet Union and Eastern Europe, if you seek liberalization, come here to this gate. Mr. Gorbachev, open this gate. Mr. Gorbachev. Mr. Gorbachev, tear down this wall.
See, historically, people, those kind of walls that are built for the safety of the people are torn down during war. This here was a war that was torn down for peace because it was erected to help shed off and protect from the Bolshevik invasion. Read your history, understand what it is, and understand what's happening in the current times, both as a result of war that brings peace and as a matter of diplomacy that brings the destruction of walls that allow us to expand and become a greater diverse society by allowing the intermixing of the peoples and their ideologies so that we can be progressive to the intelligence that comes from those diversities and the needing for technological advances, things like that. Again, it's all based under the biblical principles as I see them in my research. Just my opinion, though. So let's take a look at a couple other things, because I punched it into AI Chat GPT. And we're going to share this chat. And it says, can you tell me of something that was acquired peace without war first? And the first thing it tells me about is the Berlin Wall. Berlin Wall was a symbol of Cold War division between East and West Germany, was peacefully brought down by mass movement and shifting political tides. Shifting political tides. If you want, oops, we're not sharing. What happened? Is it not going to allow me? There we go. My apologies. And Grand Rising. And so we see this is the foundation of what I'm talking about here recently with the education, doing your research and learning yourself so you can teach your children and progressively bring that foundational knowledge and experience to wisdom within our own family units to help better provide for that vote that we think counts so much. Provide for the ability to give consent in a proper way and not be subdued through various political propaganda and enforcement tactics, various things like that. Why it's peaceful? Though tensions had been high during the Cold War, the actual moment of German reunification was achieved through that diplomatic reform, public protest, and crumbling authoritarian regime, not war. A crumbling authoritarian regime. And as we see all of the people being fired, but again, I remind you all of the people that they hired in other areas. We see downsizing in the health and education systems, but we see a large growth in the IRS and various other areas. So we have to be aware of that and be able to, again, like I said, through our education, our diplomacy, be able to start being active in the communities as community leaders, not just as the people that are doing as they're told. those fools, the bitch-ass slaves, residents, United States citizens, sitting in their cognitive dissonance. This is the thing about unity, is that, again, it comes down to the language. You have to learn the language so you can let no tongue rise up against you in judgment. You have to know those tongues so you can condemn them. And that's what diplomacy is about. Being able to rightly throw off the ill-formed words, terms, and conditions that don't apply and express nothing but the truth. Truth needs no defense. How about the South Africa's end of apartheid in the 1990s? What happened? The apartheid regime ended through negotiations between the ruling National Party and the African National Congress. Those negotiations, it's a diplomatic etiquette, the way we speak to each other, how we address each other. It's time we cede our posts and reclaim what was taken. Correct. That's Jeremiah 51:31. One post shall run to meet another, messenger to messenger, shewing unto the king of Babylon, the king of the lies, that the city is taken at the other end. So we turn it around and read it backward. We flip the script. So the people have learned to stand up against your lies, king of Babylon, and messenger to messenger, we're shouting out with our First Amendment freedom of speech, that freedom of expression, because as one post, we are so important, but exponentially, everybody that gets to hear the message has a right to know that message. That's the importance of manning up, or standing up and manning your post. You have to learn how to speak. So, why is it peaceful? Despite the deep injustice of apartheid, the transition to democracy was largely nonviolent due to the leadership of figures like Nelson Mandela and F.W. de Klerk, and a national commitment to reconciliation, not retribution. The peaceful separation of Czechoslovakia in 1993. What happened? Known as the Velvet Divorce, a separation. Czechoslovakia peacefully split into the Czech Republic and Slovakia. So now it became Czech Republic and Slovakia. There was no war, uprising, or violence, just negotiations and mutual agreement to go separate ways for political and economic reasons. This is the same stance you can take as individual men and women, heads of your household. The legacy and the dowry of your heir apparents. That's the importance. You can have a different political and economic stance, and for those reasons, you can separate. You can divorce that marriage. You can separate what was attached at birth, the false birthright attained through a false patriarch. You can now return, prodigal son, to the actual estate that you are a true heir of. And you only do that through knowledge of your own differences, knowing thyself and understanding that you are not that person. You are not the creature of the state, and they have absolutely no authority over you, and only have authority because you don't know any better. Knowledge is the benefit, not their benefits. Their benefits are the distractions of the comforts and convenience that keep you in your cognitive dissonance. The Norwegian mediation of peace in Guatemala in 1996. Guatemala's 36-year civil war ended through negotiations facilitated by Norway. It didn't end by conquering. It didn't end like the North and South Civil War here on American soil, where North conquered the South. It was negotiated, and peace came back, and they remained in their same state. Though the country had experienced war, the final peace was not achieved through military victory, but through international mediation agreements, contracts, showing that the outside support and dialogue can end violence. Your outside dialogue and input into this government can end its corruption as long as you bring truth to the table of negotiations. Diplomatic etiquette, knowing how to speak the truth and not giving a damn fuck about anybody's opinions or emotions. It is what it is, people. Costa Rica abolishing its military. They just straight up got rid of the military. Said, hey, we don't want any military expense. We don't have any need for war. And they've been peaceful ever since. They don't have a need. What is your need? I mean, to protect against a civil war. That's the only war America's ever been in. Why do you need a military that has the largest expense for any budget? Health, education, transportation, all of it. After a brief civil conflict, Costa Rica abolished its military entirely. Sounds to me like the people rose up and just said, hey, you ain't our military. You'll stand down. Why is peaceful? Rather than building back towards militarization, the country chose a path of demilitarization and investment in education and health, maintaining peace without future warfare. Know thyself, which is knowledge, and heal thyself, which is your health. Two main things you need to pay attention to in accordance with the observation of your nature and of the world around you, which is where those biblical principles come from. Then I went, can you tell me 5 more? Absolutely. See, it's not just an incidental one-off. It's happening consistently in modern times, folks. Consistently. Good Friday Agreement in Northern Ireland, 1998. After decades of sectarian violence known as the Troubles, a peace accord was signed between the British and Irish governments and most political parties in North Ireland. While the conflict was violent, and that's why I disagree with this one, because it came from a conflict. They want to call it a conflict and not a war. The resolution came not from military victory. Kind of like the one earlier. Kind of have a disagreement with that too, because it wasn't, they say it wasn't from a military victory. But yet there was conflict. So there was an element of some kind of warring faction there. But from intense multi-party negotiation, compromise, and international mediation, especially from the U.S. and EU. This is common. This is what we see in modern times right now, Ukraine, Israel, Iran, all that. Mongolia's Democratic Revolution, 1990. Here we go. Mongolia transitioned from a Soviet-backed one-party state to a democracy in a largely nonviolent revolution led by students and intellectuals. Largely nonviolent. Evidently, there was some violence. And the violence wasn't necessarily towards other people, but buildings such as in your modern-day protests, where they start lighting fires and shit. Why it's peaceful mass protests, hunger strikes, and civil resistance led to the ruling government to step down and hold free elections without civil war or foreign intervention. The power of the people. They'll hang us in the street when they find out what we've done. Remember that quote? Evidently, one of our political leaders said that. They'll hang us in the streets if they find out what we've done. Bhutan's peaceful transition to democracy in 2008, 17 years ago. What happened? Bhutan voluntarily transitioned from an absolute monarchy to a constitutional monarchy with democratic elections by royal initiative. So here we have examples where the people rose up against the government. And here there's an example of the government itself saying, okay, we accept your request to be democratic, to have your say in it. There was no demand from the people, no conflict. The king chose to give power to the people through a new constitution and elections, making this a rare example of a peaceful political evolution, not revolution. So we're seeing a lot of different effects and ways of getting there of a peaceful ends. What happened? Singapore separated from Malaysia, not through war, but through mutual agreement, just like Czechoslovakia. A little bit different. There's a little tension there. But this year is after a period of political friction and ethnic tension. Why it's peaceful? Although the split was not originally desired by Singapore, it was ultimately negotiated diplomatically. No bloodshed occurred, and both countries established their own paths. That's that thing about having a different political and economic reasons. The Nordic peace model is countries like Sweden, Finland, Norway, and Denmark have remained peaceful for generations, avoiding large-scale wars in the 20th and 21st centuries. Why is peaceful? Because through strong institutions, emphasis on education, diplomacy, and social cohesion, not social compliance, as in a social compact, well, everybody else jumped off the bridge, so you should too. No, social cohesion. They have maintained peace without ever needing to wage war first. Give me 5 more examples, please. You can go on and on. It's going to keep giving you plenty of examples. Today, in modern time on American soil, we have 2 great examples right here. Canada's Confederation in 1867. That's when people spread about the Louisiana territory and started purchasing land and dividing it into states and everything. Well, Canada was one of that separation through Canada's Confederation in 1867. Canada peacefully became a self-governing dominion within the British Empire through negotiation among provinces. Why it's peaceful? Unlike the U.S. or many colonies, Canada's unification and independence. You can't be unified and independent. That's the problem. It's still part of the British Empire, folks. A self-governing dominion within the British Empire. Were gradual and negotiated diplomatically with no revolutionary war. They were induced into being citizens of a British Empire across the waters. Switzerland has a long-standing neutrality with staying out of both world wars and most modern conflicts for over 200 years. Through deliberate neutrality, strong diplomacy, and an early federal constitution, 1848, Switzerland has maintained internal and external peace without fighting for it. Civil Rights Act of 1964, right here again on American soil, is another example of peaceful resolutions for conflicts that have been going on for eons. Why was it peaceful? Though there was state violence against protesters, the civil rights movement itself was largely nonviolent, led by figures like Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., and achieved systemic change through laws, marches, and public pressure, not war. That's them old Jim Crow laws. The independence of Norway from Sweden, 1905. Norway and Sweden peacefully dissolved their union after nearly a century. A national referendum, diplomacy, and royal negotiations avoided war entirely. Despite a military buildup on both sides, not a single shot was fired. Not a single shot, folks. And I urge that if nations can do this, then we as independent people can do this. But again, it's only from getting outside of the book and getting private tutors or getting into study groups or doing your further research on your own even. Don't believe me. Don't believe the neighbor. Don't believe the government. For crying out loud, don't believe your mother. Do that extra thinking, that critical thinking outside of the box. Abstract concepts, coming up with novel ideas. That's how we progress. That's how we move forward, by being constrained and confined to the lineated process of remembering what everybody else is regurgitating from what everybody else is regurgitating. We've got to come out of her. We've got to come out of those lies. We've got to rise up against Babylon. We've got to learn how to stand and man that post. My people are destroyed for lack of knowledge. So when the people come together with the intent of learning that knowledge, which is the truth, not the lies, again, quit listening to everybody else and just believing it. If you want to believe it, at least do your research so you can find out if it's true or not, so you can actually believe it as truth. If you want to believe in anything, believe in the truth. See, facts are relevant, but they may or may not be truthful. And we have to think about this in our knowledge and what we're bringing our children up, those future generations that we're going to expect to be able to lead us when we're needing to be dependent upon that government to protect us in our old age. Do we want that government to protect the bureaucracies of the corporations that are privatizing the healthcare and the retirement homes so they can continue abusing our elders? Or are we going to start taking that back too? See, we hand over the education of our children to a public education system and indoctrinate our children and ourselves into this healthcare system all our lives, that we believe when we get old and retired, that even if we end up in a retirement home, rather than having our own retirement home ourselves, being able to retire and have that ability to have our own home and be buried in a plot on our own land. When are you going to understand what the false patriarch really is? It's nothing but a basket of lies. And you're the ones lying. You're the ones giving the false data elements. You're the ones saying I'm a resident and not knowing. You just believe you are, so you say you are. That's a major problem when you find out what that term really means. Same with United States citizen. United States citizen means United States business. United States citizen means United States business. 15 U.S.C. 4724. 15 U.S.C. 4724. Subsection E. United States business means, or United States citizen means United States business. And then you can look under the following subsections that describe it otherwise, still as businesses: corporations, trusts, estates, things like that. Are you a United States business? If not, then I would stop claiming that you're a United States citizen. That's a lie. And every time you put that into the record, you're the one that's bearing false witness. Repent. Don't do it no more. Stop lying. And with that, folks, I'm at the end of the stream for tonight. Just want everybody to know that peace through diplomacy is the way to go. Even if you've got this war in your own life, you have to be able to understand what diplomatic etiquette is. And that means the languages, the tongues, the words. Every tongue that rises up against thee in judgment, thou shalt condemn. This is the inheritance of the servants of the Lord, and their righteousness is of me, saith the Lord. That righteousness only comes in truth. Remember that. Also remember, I love you, but I don't give a rat's ass whether you love me back. That's to say, I don't care if you hate me. I don't care if you don't respect me. That part's on you. So may your God bless you and love you, and have a good night. We'll see you next time. Bye now.